Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. It's a pleasure to have us back with us. And so many of you have been asking, how do I avail myself of all the previous episodes? It's very simple. You go on YouTube, you click A Time for Truth show, and you hit the subscribe button. And we'll be very happy to have you as one of our viewers, and you'll be availed of all the years of all the previous segments. Tonight, we have something that you've been asking for, because we've been asked, how do I apply my strategy in business? What is the way? What is the avenue? What is the mindset to get ahead, to be a successful entrepreneur, a consultant? So tonight we're very, very lucky to have with us a man who's done exactly that and who will have much to share. His name is Ryan Smith. And we're going to put his pictures up on the screen for you. Please, engineer, and introduce you to this prolific man. He's a corporate leader with a diverse career spanning development, sales, business management, and public speaking. He has worked with major entities such as Microsoft, Google, ADP, Keller Williams, with notable success in sales management and business development. At Keller, for example, he led a 250-plus agent real estate office, growing sales volume by 49% year over year, and profit by over 59%. He was also instrumental in the launch of Museum of the Bible, where he helped raise $620 million and helped manage relationships with over 50,000 donors. As an entrepreneur with expertise in search engine marketing, customer relationship management, real estate, and digital marketing, Smith founded and expanded several ventures, consulted for real estate, medical practices, and crowdfunding platforms. Smith holds a BS in marketing and a minor in radio and television from Bob Jones University. And as a seasoned public speaker, has delivered hundreds of exhilarating motivational presentations. As a dedicated athlete, he has completed 2 Ironman triathlons and 2 marathons, demonstrating his perseverance and drive, both personally and professionally. An engineer, if you will, let's bring him up live and bid a warm welcome to Ryan Smith to A Time for Truth show. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time. We have a lot to share. I want to get right to it. Let's get a little bit about your history. When you were a young man, what were your dreams?
Well, I mean, just like every other kid, I was dreaming about the near future probably more than the distant future. I had to tell the internal voice of self-doubt to shut up all the time, because we all have self-doubt, but you have to tell it to shut up. I was determined. There are stories about me that are legendary about my determination. That's why I guess I got the nickname Rhino, for Ryan, but then Rhino like rhinoceros, keeping your head down and going through, if you will, the jungle with one nose focused right on the target. Um, in many ways, I was different than a lot of kids. People said that I was put in the side sometimes for being different, but I was driven. I was at private schools my whole life, and I won basically every award that you could possibly have. So much money raised that they didn't even have a level for that. So I would get, customized awards, I guess you can say, for that. But as a kid, like I said, you're dreaming about the not distant future. You're dreaming about the temporary close. But my father and mother were a very big influence in my life. So the dreams were, competitive and close by, I guess I could say. It wasn't a big picture yet because my brain wasn't fully formed.
Well, you know what? One thing I know from meeting you, from being with you, you're unbelievably prolific human being. And as you said, you're not the run-of-the-mill human being, which is a tremendous compliment because the world has really gone down quite a bit on the toboggan. So it's a pleasure to have someone who's not the run-of-the-mill, who's not same as everyone else, who stood out. So please tell us, how did you expand so quickly and so much in the corporate field?
Well, I want to give all glory to God. It's Him. You have to do the work and work smart and work hard, but it's God that gives the increase. The success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal, or progressive functioning according to original intent. So, the way that you expand in the corporate field is you're constantly taking that stair step up and up and up and up and up of growth, and all that stepping of stones. That stone stepping is basically summed up in, man's mind once stretched by original idea never regains its original dimensions. I guess I could say that came from many things from my father and my mother. One story is my dad was in, there were about 15,000 people there, and I was able to hear Tony Robbins for the first time. Not that I think that he knows everything or is the guru of all gurus, but it made an impression on me of, stretching your mind. And I saw a room of 15,000 people, and I had never seen this before. So, that put me on, I guess, the trajectory in my brain of what is possible, and then expanding that. So when you do that, you just don't go back to normal again. You don't ever have your mind regain its original dimensions. It's constantly changed forever now. So I would say, even something as simple as my father, some of the things he would teach me, of just asking questions and using the Socratic method, and even negotiating as a little kid of 8, 9, and 10 with paper routes and mowing, and if I wanted something extra, asking people for it, and him encouraging me to do that and teaching me that. So it was a lot of things. My mother reading the Bible with me, teaching me Bible verses, teaching me the Word of God, because she helped me sanctify myself by the truth. The Bible is truth. So I guess those things are some of the things that expanded me in early on, which helped me expand in the corporate world.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense because you change your what's called necessity level or your reality level. And, once you get to a higher altitude and you see what's there, what you're saying is logical. What I wanted to ask you is, what major points do you attribute, and can you tell us regarding this tremendous success that you had at Keller Williams, which is really astounding.
Yeah, I would go back to the last question real quickly. One other thing expanded me in corporate field is the first real business that I was actually involved with, as let's call it, business experience or corporate experience, grew literally from 24 million the first year, 50 million the second year, over 110 million the third year, and then went publicly traded on NASDAQ stock exchange. So my mind then again was just stretched that this is normal. And it wasn't normal, but that was my normal. So that's all I knew. So I didn't even say anything different than that. So that part is a part of it. To go into your question about the success at Keller Williams, well, I read Gary Keller's book called The One Thing. He's an incredible author. He makes it clear, and he talked about focusing on what is the one thing that you focus on, but by focusing on that one thing, everything else becomes irrelevant or takes care of itself. Well, when I read that book, I actually read it in 1 minute because I thought there's one page that's going to be about the one thing. So I don't need to read the whole book. I'm just going to read the one page. And I'm going to take his analogy of the one thing, and I'm going to read one page as if I read that book's one page. What is that one page that by reading that one page, everything else would become irrelevant or would take care of itself? And it was the page that said the key to the book. So I figured out through asking other people questions, which I do every company I've ever come into. I ask who are the top 3 people, and I go to those 3 people, and everyone I could get my hands on. Basically, in a real estate office, the number one thing is recruiting good agents that produce, and in Keller Williams, produce up to the cap. You don't need agents to produce above the cap, because at Keller Williams they cap them at a certain amount of money that they make, whereas other brokerages take money from agents all the way up to dollar infinity. So I didn't need the highest earners in real estate. I needed someone that just hit the cap. So I could go after and recruit then agents that were not loved on as much, and I could love on them, and I differentiate myself because no one else was loving on them, because they were the number 100, 101st, 2nd, 3rd, 109th, 110th, 120th, 150th best agent in the city. But for us, they were the highest that you could possibly get in a cap. So, there goes 100 agents that I recruited in 1 year, and I was in the top 2%. We were in the top 2% of all Keller Williams in the entire nation in net growth and retention of agents, meaning how many agents do you get minus that you lose. That, the reason why is because, you got to recruit the right staff. I recruited some people actually in college as interns. And I told them, I will teach you everything I know if you will work hard and you will be smart and you will be loyal and you will focus. And I taught those guys everything they possibly could learn from me as fast as possible. And they were loyal and hard workers. Some of those people are some of the top agents in Keller Williams and in recruiting throughout the United States now. And, you have to provide clarity and vision, and you have to provide the correct nomenclature. I changed the website to kwdrivefamily.com. Why? Because the word family, people don't leave a family, and people stay. So we had higher retention because on Facebook, every single day I would get on at 5 to 7 o'clock when I was finished working, and I would have a talk of the day. So people knew that I had direct access. I'd have half the brokerage sometimes, or somewhere around there, listing at any given day, and hundreds we'd be listing within 1 or 2 days. So through the pandemic, a very difficult time, you were able to stay connected to people. And that's some of the things.
Very, very interesting. It's amazing, and your mindset is very interesting with what you applied with that book. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur, business consultant to begin with?
Freedom. Freedom is the desire to do things that matter for eternity, and then the challenge to learn more, unencumbered by someone telling you where you have to be, what you have to do, because that stops and hinders creativity. Every single day is a different opportunity to solve. And if you have either a manager above you or the creativity to be an entrepreneur and a consultant, then every day is a different opportunity. Literally, people say, well, what do you do? I say, I help nonprofits around the world. Well, what do you help them do? I said, anything that their problem is. Tell me what their problem is, and I can solve it. Because you understand taxonomy, you know, like biology class, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, from general to specific. And if you understand the taxonomical structure of that, you know, when I went to the global partner of Google, I had never sold Google AdWords. I didn't even really know what Google AdWords was, the product that makes Google the vast majority of their money. And they were like, how did you learn that so fast? And it was taxonomy, because everything that you bid on in Google AdWords is a taxonomy. And if you understood that, then I could teach people the taxonomy substructure, and I gave them an invertebrate structure so that they could know how to think. And once they knew how to think, from that, everything moved. Well, that's the skill of an entrepreneur and a business consultant, because you're having to take something like this orb that was created right here, and you're having to break the orb apart, and you're having to figure out the component parts of the orb, of what is really going on, what are the component parts of the orb, and then you're putting that orb back together, and then you're unable to understand the orb because you just took it apart and put it back together in front of people, and they now know what you're talking, that you know what you're talking about. So that's what inspired me.
Makes a hell of a lot of sense, you know, because you had this overall product. You made the sub-products, you made the pathways to those sub-products, and gave people opportunities. You know, I got to say something as a comment off the cuff, is you actually provided life for all of these other beings, which I want to just point out to the viewers, is that I can see is that one of the reasons you're so successful is you're actually providing for others, which is something this world needs, is to actually create life, create avenues, create opportunities. So I really laud you for that. And with that, I want to ask you a question. So what are the mistakes and the wrong philosophies that you see are committed by failing businessmen?
Well, one is they make decisions too slowly. You know, you need to fail faster, and you need to be agile, and you need to be iterative, as opposed to, in computer technology, if you know this, waterfall. You know, the founder of one of the businesses that I was with literally pulled me into his office and he said, Ryan, I want you to make as many mistakes as fast as you can and just correct them. And we will literally be light years ahead of everybody. Before we've even had our third iteration of our product, they won't even be out of bed with their first thought of their first product, not even alone, actually the product. And so I took him at his word, and we grew from $8 million in sales to $600 million in 4 years. We're the fastest growing technology company in the history of the world at that point, other than Google. You know, God put me in that position and allowed me to be the highest producing manager in the history of that company. It wasn't me, it was him doing it. I mean, yeah, I worked hard, and yeah, I did things as smart as I possibly could, but there's way more people smarter than me. It's God putting me in those positions, and you asking him for wisdom on how to correct your mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes, but people get too worried about the mistakes that they make. And it's like the difference between, you know, a statement of cash flows. Water needs to go over. Water needs to be going through the system. You can correct a mistake if you're moving, but if you're sitting still, every mistake that you make is fatal because you're not moving. You know, they had a thing of spaghetti that was hard, a spaghetti that was given to people, strands of spaghetti and a marshmallow and a piece of tape. And they said to people, make a thing that would hold that marshmallow as high as possible off the ground, a structure that would hold that marshmallow off the ground as high as possible. Well, basically broke out into two different groups. One group never touched the marshmallow, never had anything to do, just all they did is thought about it and wrote it down on paper and whatever. Their marshmallow was somewhere like 20 inches off the ground. The other group touched the spaghetti, built a structure, and it collapsed, and built another structure and it toppled over, and then built another structure and it collapsed again. And by building it multiple times, their average was 28 inches off the ground. Because by touching the thing and doing the thing and failing at the thing, the failure was the learning. The failure was the success.
Now, that's something that's a statement that could go by But it's interesting because when you look at life, some people say, well, there's too many barriers. But they're really not barriers. Like you said, they're opportunities to see, okay, what do you have to retool? What do you have to re-strategize? Very interesting what you just said, because it's true. Many people look at failures and they just totally stop, whereas you took the failure and you retooled. So let me ask you a question, because you also, it's amazing, on top of all this, you're also a public speaker. So what I wanted to ask you, how do you suggest that speakers best engage an audience that really, really gets the message? You have people get up there and they speak, but it goes nowhere. People walk out and they're no different than when they came in. They're not happy. So what would you suggest to best engage an audience and really get the product or the message getting across?
Yeah, good question. Show differentiation. Show how you're different. Talk different, think different, speak different, because everybody says biggest, largest, greatest, fastest, whatever. Those are irrelevant terms. No one listens to them. But when you say, here's how we're different, then people's ears perk up, because differentiation is showing juxtaposition. People can understand that. You know, if you speak with clarity and you break things apart so that people can understand, and when you reassemble the parts right in front of them, then they actually see what it is and how you're different. You know, you're answering the objection before it comes up. If you answer the objection before it comes up, you're literally putting the objection into your presentation so that people can see that you've been there before, you know what's going on, and they follow that leader. You know, when I was with the global partner of Google, I figured out there were 42 objections of why not to buy Google AdWords and why to buy, you know, the Yellow Pages or TV, radio, whatever. And I put those 42 objections into a MP3 file and had my agents drive around Los Angeles and other cities where they work and listen to them before they went to the appointment. And I literally had some of them call me up after the appointment and say, literally, I had 5 of these objections asked to me, the ones that you said. I answered exactly as you taught me on the MP3, and I had a 1-call close. So when you're engaging people of an audience, not only are you having to show differentiation, not only are you having to answer the objection before it comes up in your presentation, so that they literally go, that guy thought what I thought before I even told him what I thought. He knows what he's doing. And then the last is you understand that you're talking to the 4 personality types. So when I gave over 1,000 tours of Museum of the Bible, there are 4 types of people: pragmatics, extroverts, amiables, and analytics. So every 5 minutes, I had to be touching every one of those 4 people to keep all of them, because my audience would be all those people. If I'm only talking to one group, then the other groups aren't going to listen. And if I'm only talking to 2 groups, then the other 2. Or if I'm only talking once every hour to them, then they get bored and they fall off the spindle. But if I'm talking to every one of those 4 groups every 5 minutes, touching them, and they're engaged. And because they're hearing me in the way that they talk, they're hearing me talk the way that they listen.
Very, very good. Very, very effective. Very, very helpful. Now, I want to ask you something, because on top of all this, you're a tremendous athlete, competed as an Ironman, marathon. So, and you gave your secret in the beginning of the show that you're rhino. So, what's your secret to this discipline? And, you know, I get the drive just from you speaking, so I can imagine when you play a sport. So tell us your secret.
Well, I played basketball in college and soccer in college and ran track. You know, in the competitions, you know, you got to keep that goal right in front of you. If that goal is not right in front of you, then there's going to be an issue. Obviously, you got to change your mind about what pain and pleasure is. If you change your mind about what pain and pleasure is, your entire life changes. You know, they say there's 3 things. Number 1, what happened? Number 2, what do you believe about what happened? And number 3, what do you do about what you believe? The second one is the most important. What do you believe about what happened? So when you're in pain, in competition or whatever, and it's a struggle, you got to understand that the struggle is actually the beauty of it. The struggle is the pleasure. long after the excitement of saying you're going to do something is worn off, you have to go do it. It's what builds resilience. You know, if you would today and go to YouTube and type in NVIDIA CEO resilience, you'll hear a 2.5-minute video. Watch the 2.5-minute video, not the 2.5-minute video. Founder and CEO of NVIDIA talking about struggle, talking about actual pain. And through that, he says it builds perseverance, which is the word resilience. And through that resilience builds character. And through character builds hope. And I don't even know if he knew it, but the CEO of NVIDIA literally quoted Romans 5:3-5. You see, there's so many people that say truth all over the world, and the world goes, wow, that's amazing. And every single time, it's someone actually saying the Bible. And that is showing the actual truth. Not your truth or my truth, but the truth. Because if I said, well, I owe $900,000 in my mortgage, and my truth is that I'm going to pay you $2, Mr. Banker, and I've paid my $900,000. He's going to say, well, Ryan, the truth is that $900,000 does not equal $2, and you owe me a lot more money. See, because there are objective standards. For if you change what you view as pain and pleasure, or if you have that goal in front of you, or if you have resilience, these are lighthouse principles that speak far beyond our whimsical nature of our emotion or our attitude of the day, if you will. Like Chuck Swindoll said, you have a choice every day about that attitude. And yes, some days I have to fire myself and rehire myself after getting my attitude straight. So I'm speaking and preaching, if you will, to myself.
What changes do you feel need to occur in our planet?
Yeah, I mean, I think we obviously need clarity and vision from leaders at all times. You know, they need to lay out paths forward. They need to expose fraud and neglect and untruthfulness. They need to talk about how truth is an absolute standard and not relative. Obviously, technically, there's no divide between secular and spiritual. So the moralism, if you will, are apparent. You know, the Bible says that if you make a man moral, you're actually making them twice the son of hell, because he's just conforming to a law without understanding the actual who paid the price and what grace is. So actually peace and all these things come actually from within first, because world peace will actually come upon when Christ returns the second time. But, you know, if I had a comment on that, I'd say, you know, do you have a God-shaped void? You have a God-shaped void that only He can fill. So there's a myriad of quotes of people from Tom Brady to Deion Sanders to billionaires saying, you know, is this all there is? Is there something more that has meaning? You know, folks, when you put your head on your pillow at night, I humbly ask you to speak specifically to your heart about how He can feel and He can fill that gnawing fulfillment that is not physical, but it's metaphysical, because He is active and He will answer if you seek. And by seeking that, folks, we have peace inside first. And by that peace, we solve a much more global conflict and the problems of the world by solving it, because you start with yourself.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Unfortunately, like all good things, the things that are good go rapidly. But I want to really thank you for sharing. It's been an unbelievable segment, and it's been a tremendous help, I know, for a lot of people. And it's a pleasure to have you. And with you on the show, I want to do something that I believe in, because I believe that the way things change is first you get agreement. When you're alone, you're one being. But when you're together, there's agreement, and we get more and more and more, like you said. Hopefully the viewers out there said, hey, you know what? That guy Ryan Smith and that guy Dr. Ben really were thinking like I was. You know what? Maybe I'm going to change, and this world's going to change. So you know what? In 2025, let's see this change. Let's bring God into our lives, spirituality, integrity. Thank you so much, Ryan Smith.
Amen. Thank you.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got. But the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet